Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. Today is stage 19 of the 2023 Tour de France. Today's race, 173 kilometers, about 115 miles in length, and only two categorized climbs on today's stage. One comes at about 150 kilometers in the stage. The next one comes and summits at 28 kilometers to go on today's stage 19, but it's only a little bit over 2 kilometers, 2.3 at about 5.9%. So it's got a little bit of stick to it, but not a whole lot for the professional peloton here at the 23 Tour de France. Looks like it could be a sprint stage, but we saw yesterday, and I explained to you yesterday, that we got a lot of sprinters missing here at the 23 edition of the Tour de France. And we know Albacete de Koenig were a bunch of knuckleheads on yesterday's stage 18. So the chances that Albacete de Koenig could do the right tactics here on stage 19 and make it a field sprint for Jasper Philipsen are probably slim to none. But who knows? Jasper Philipsen is climbing really good. So maybe he can come out with some good result here and get that 5th stage victory at the Tour de France. Now, before we get into the stage, I want to show you the blue jersey that's over here to the side, and we're putting them up on the website, the Horner Cycling Foundation, where I'm trying to get a bunch of kids into some bike racing here in Oregon from about 14 to 18 years old, get them focused, get them loving the bike, and then maybe one day we'll see them in the Tour de France. So if you guys are interested in a jersey, go to the Horner Cycling Foundation webpage. We'll have Molly's email up there, and she can get you a jersey eventually. Well, probably about 2 months out, I believe, on the jerseys, but I'll set up Molly's email address down below so you guys know how to contact her if you want a jersey and want to support the young kids here in Oregon. And honestly, I take them from just about anywhere in the state here or outside of the state if they want to travel and just want some coaching from Chris Horner. Now, let's get into today's stage. As we see the riders in the neutral section there all lined up at the front with the race leader's jersey. Jonas Vingegaard, Jumbo-Visma, and Tadej Pogačar made it on time to the start of this year's stage 19 of the Tour de France. They'll roll out, we'll get into kilometer 0, and then we'll start seeing attacks shortly after that. Once we get about 5-6 kilometers into the race, we're going to see my man Victor Campenaerts from Lotto Destiny. He's throwing down again. You see him super arrow. He's got some legs again, even though he was in the breakaway all day yesterday on stage 18. He'll get wrapped up. We'll see Peter Sagan, the 3-time road world champion. He's throwing in attack. He'll get wrapped up. We see the pelotons hurting back there. Now, Mads Pedersen's going to throw in an attack, and he's a road world champion, ex-road world champion too. He'll get brought back, and then we start getting into the KOM. The first KOM, like I said, summits with about 150 kilometers to go. It's Mads Pedersen and Alexei Lusenko from Astana throwing down on this first climb here on stage 19. They'll go over the top, just barely in front of the peloton. Once they drop down the backside, those two guys are flying, and you see the bottom last corner here, the descent of the first categorized climb. Mads Pedersen's going in first, but it's a tricky one. It's a bit of a hook, and it's a blinder. They'll come right by the right turn there with the town building there, so they can't see what's coming, and when they come out, they realize it's a hook. Mads Pedersen barely makes the corner and has to pop up on the sidewalk. Lusenko goes through a little bit slower, but does make the corner, and then has to throw down and catch back up with Mads Pedersen. In the peloton behind after this descent, it's blown up in pieces, and UAE Team Emirates are behind the 8 ball. Now, if you go up to the front of the peloton, we see it's Matteo Trentin up there. You go to the next big group, maybe the second group, it's Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogačar from UAE Team Emirates up there. But you go to the 4th group, and you see UAE Team Emirates with 2-3 riders in that group. And then you see the 5th group back behind that one. They have 2-3 riders from UAE in there, and one of them's Adam Yates. Those two groups will come back together, and UAE Team members got to do some big work because up front it's throwing down. Mads Pedersen and Alexei Lusenko get caught, and we see it's Julian Alaphilippe throwing in tacks going up the bump here. There's almost nothing flat in today's race. There's no big KOM mountains, but there's nothing flat either, as we see the group back there being led by UAE Team members trying to close up the gaps. Now, I think this is a knucklehead move. You look at Matteo Trentin up at the front of the peloton. Then you see Tadej Pogačar. I believe he's got one teammate with him. And then you go back, and there's 5 UAE Team Emirates back there going full gas. We'll see eventually Adam Yates is going to have to hit out to close the gap as the peloton's blown up. He closes back up to his teammates, and then he's going to have some help from one of his teammates doing a big-time pull to get him to the back of the main GC peloton here early early in this stage 19. UAE Team Emirates are behind the 8 ball, and they're sending Matteo Trentin up the road covering brakes. Guys, it just doesn't make any sense if you're the director sportif. If you got third on the general classification back there, Adam Yates struggling to get back on, and you have Matteo Trentin covering moves. Matteo Trentin is on very good form, and clearly in the bus meeting this morning before the race started, director sportif Machine said, Matteo Trentin, you got the green light to go for it, but even though you gave him the green light in the morning when you got Adam Yates chasing and 5 teammates total back there chasing, you know you got to pull Trentin out of that front group and keep him closer to the TdF Pogačar, if not send them back there to help Adam Yates, but instead Trentin's being active up front. Now we're going to see Nils Politt with about 125 kilometers to go. The Bora Hansgrohe rider, remember the show he put on with about 5 kilometers to go in yesterday's stage 18? Well, we know he's got some good form because before stage 18, it was 17 in the mountain, and Nils Politt was still up there going into the last mountain climb trying to bring back time on that breakaway that stayed off. Now, today, it's Nils Politt time. He's Bora Hansgrohe, and he's throwing down 100%. He's going up the road, and he's going to get some company with 8 more riders joining him to put 9 riders in the front. These 9 riders are all big-time hitters because we got Benoot up there, Trentin from UAE Team Emirates, Julian Alaphilippe's there, Haig's there, Nils Politt, I said he's already putting on a show, Mads Pedersen from Trek Segafredo, Barguil from Arkea, and my man Victor Campenaerts in the group of 9. Again, Victor Campenaerts is putting on a show almost every stage here at the Tour de France. Nils Politt's driving it, and this group is magical of 9 guys. Super power. We go back to the peloton back there. What's happening? Well, they got teams pulling. We see Uno X is on the front, and they're going to have some help pulling with EF Education and Israel Premier Tech. So 3 teams chasing 9 guys, but 9 classy riders. We get into 90 kilometers to go. Nils Politt, Bora Hansgrohe, is going to go through this left turn. And when he does, look, his chain snaps. His chain snaps, and if I had video, you'd see he's still trying to pedal, figuring out what's happening, but as his chain's extending out there on the concrete road and the hill starting to go up just a little bit, well, he pulls over to the right side. Shimano support throws him a bike, but it's the wrong pedals. They pull down a second bike off the roof to give him that. Again, he's pointing out, guys, it's the wrong pedals. I ride Shimano pedals. These are not Shimano pedals. Mechanic's running back to get a third bike. When he jumps on the third bike, it's too small. And by now, he's frustrated and upset. We look over to the side there when you see the father and the daughter there. The daughter's taking pictures with her phone, videotaping the whole thing. You can see her with a little giggle as each bike coming off the Shimano roof isn't going to fit Nils Politt because this guy's a monster, and every bike they're giving him is more set for a rider like me or even smaller. Well, Nils Politt finally gets his Bora Hansgrohe mechanic and his team car pulled over and get him on the right bike, and then they give him a big push. Now, by this time, the peloton has already caught him. He's off the back. He's chasing in the cars, but he will get back up to the peloton behind the group of 8 riders now going full gas. Now, the group of 8, they're going to come into the intermediate sprint line competition with 75 kilometers to go. If we back it up to about 80 kilometers to go, we're halfway in the stage, and we know it's full gas, and nothing has still settled in today's stage 19 because you got 3 teams chasing 8 riders up front. Now we're coming to the intermediate sprint, and things are getting interesting. If I back the film up again before I talk about that intermediate sprint, I want to show you the group that was chasing the gruppetto back there anyways, and they had at least 3 Alpecin de Koenig riders in there. Now we go up to 75 kilometers to go proper, and I'll get into the story finally. We see it's Mads Pedersen coming across the line first in this group of 8, but they're being trailed behind by the peloton closely, being led by 3 teams, like I said. We'll see Jasper, Philipsen, Alpecin de Koenig. He'll come through for the 9th place intermediate sprint points competition. Why? I have no idea, but afterwards, there we see a split. It's a solid split, and they got about 9 guys with Jasper Philipsen, and he's got his teammate Mathieu van der Poel there. Only problem is he's missing his other teammate, Søren Kragh Andersen, who's in the group behind. They had 3 guys total in this front group, and they weren't touching the front at all. 3 teams chasing 8 that would have been probably chasing for a long time, while Jasper Philipsen, Mathieu van der Poel, and Søren Kragh Andersen had a free ride to sit on this group with the 3 teams chasing from Uno X, EF Education, and of course from Israel Premier Tech doing a solid job. But instead, Jasper Philipsen decides, I got this group reduced. I'm going to throw down right now because I feel good. Well, he throws down, the peloton behind splits in half as we see about 30 riders go up to Jasper Philipsen. Now we got 35 riders chasing the 8 up front. We go behind and see what's happening. Well, Nils Politt, I told you he got on, but he missed the split. Now he's trying to jump across. Well, with Bora Hansgrohe rider's not going to make it. He's going to get pulled back, and Jumbo-Visma are going to control what's considered the GC peloton here on stage 19 at this point in time in the race. Up front, the 35 riders, they're going full gas with about 65 kilometers to go. They're going to catch that group of 8. Now we're going to see Mads Pedersen looking over at Julian Alaphilippe. As Mads Pedersen's talking to Julian Alaphilippe, oh man, on the left side, it's my man Victor Campenaerts throwing in attack with 65 kilometers to go. The Lotto Destiny riders putting on a show, and a show throughout this whole Tour de France. Now he's waiting up front because there's one more rider coming across. It's Israel Premier Tech's Clark. Clark gets up there and the 2 riders start drilling it. Behind, they're not very well organized. Remember Jasper Philipsen, before that intermediate sprint competition, you had 3 teams chasing on the front. Now there's not that organized and you only have 2 teammates because you dropped Søren Kragh Andersen to reduce your numbers here to control the peloton into the finish of stage 19. So now there's attacks happening all over the place. We see up front with about 32 kilometers to go, as Victor Campenaerts, my man, is having some problems with his breakaway companion, Simon Clark. Simon Clark's cramping up big time. You see him reaching down to his right hamstring there as his legs are cramping up, and he's just thinking, wow, I had a shot at winning stage 19 of the Tour de France with Victor Campenaerts, but I'm not going to make it over the KOM. That's starting soon. Just as he was cramping, well, it was starting to tax big time back there as we saw Casper Asgreen. Casper Asgreen won yesterday, stage 18, and now he's on the tack again. He's got Ben O'Connor there, and he's got Mate Mahorch just coming out of the group. Those 2 will get caught by Mate Mahorch and make 3 riders chasing 1 Victor Campenaerts as the last and final climb here on stage 19 starts. With about 30 kilometers to go, we see my man Victor Campenaerts getting wrapped up early in this 6% climb. He's been going big time throughout the last almost 3 weeks of the Tour de France. Now we see Asgreen's on the front, my man Victor Campenaerts on the back, and all of a sudden he starts coming off. We see Asgreen look right over his shoulder, look down, and he's like, sorry, my man Vic, but I got to go because there's a chance to win a back-to-back stage victory here at the Tour de France. So Asgreen doesn't hesitate and accelerates. They go over the top of the climb with 3 riders together, Casper Asgreen, Ben O'Connor, and Mate Mahorch, who's a 2-time Tour de France stage winner. Behind, what's happening in the group? Well, I told you Alpecin de Koenig were attacking, caused this split because they're big-time knuckleheads. Now we look going up the climb. Who does the first attack? That's Mads Pedersen, the ex-road world champion who's been putting on a show of force since kilometer 0 here on stage 19. Now he gets caught. Tish Benoot, Jumbo-Visma throws in attack because there's 2 Jumbo-Visma guys in this front group with Christophe Laporte being his teammate. He'll get brought back. Mads Pedersen with about 400 or 500 meters to the top of the summit. He throws in another attack and again gets caught. Now, going down the descent, the 3 riders in front, they're going full gas. It looks almost identical to yesterday's stage 18 because look up front, it's Casper Asgreen going full gas. He's got company, though, and they're pulling hard. Ben O'Connor, AG2Rs, doing big pulls on the front. Mate Mahorch, you know he's going to pull big. So every time we go back to the peloton, we see attacks. It can't get together, even though we had 4 X riders in that group of about 30, 35 riders. They blew up with the attacks there from Casper Asgreen and started dropping off. Now we look coming down the descent. It's Christophe Laporte and Mathieu van der Poel, and they got a gap on everyone behind. Again, this time, Christophe Laporte, he's looking back. He wants some help from Mathieu van der Poel. Mathieu van der Poel won't pull. Now, the only problem is, Mathieu van der Poel, what were you doing? In this group of 30, 35 riders, you had multiple numbers. Mathieu van der Poel just needs to control the attacks. Remember, Jumbo-Visma had 2 riders in here, Tish Benoot and Christophe Laporte, who's going up the road with Mathieu van der Poel, but Mathieu van der Poel won't take a pull. At this point in time, if you got some form, you got to close the gap up to the 3 riders right away. Otherwise, they're going to extend and hold off everybody chasing. Instead, Mathieu van der Poel holds up. Just as we look back, it's Mads Pedersen trying to close the gap. We look just before Mads Pedersen and Jasper Philipsen got that gap. It was Fred Wright, Bahrain victorious, that opened up the gap there to Jasper Philipsen coming through the town. He opened it up because he's got Mate Mahorch in the front group of 3, so he's playing tactics. Now we look as Mads Pedersen's closing the gap. up to Christophe Laporte. Well, Mathieu van der Poel backs off the throttle, thinks everything's going to come back together, but that's not going to happen because Christophe Laporte throws in attack. He throws in attack, and now you look, Jasper Philipsen has to close the attack to the Jumbo-Visma rider of Christophe Laporte. This is just causing nails going into the legs of Jasper Philipsen left and right. Now up front, the three riders, they got about a 20-second gap. There's chaos all over the place. Nobody's working well together, and attacks are coming left and right. With about 18 kilometers to go, Matteo Trentini throws in his own attack. This is going to split it to 9 riders up in the front group going full gas. Guys, there's class in here, and Mathieu van der Poel and Jasper Philipsen made this front group of 9. They're going full gas. You look behind, Julian Alaphilippe has missed the move. Dylan Groenewegen missed the move, and they're way far back. Nothing they can do. The 3 riders up front are going full gas, still working magically together. Ben O'Connor's taking full pulls for AG2R. Mate Mahorch is not missing a pull. Casper Asgreen, Pseudo Quickstep. He's still looking for that second stage victory here for Pseudo Quickstep on stage 19 to back up yesterday's stage 18 win. The group behind, they're not gelling well. You see, with 5 kilometers to go, Jasper Philipsen's having some talks. He's looking over to the side there at Mads Pedersen, and he's having some talks with Mads Pedersen from Liddell Trek. And I'm sitting on the Chesterfield like, Jasper Philipsen, you screwed this whole thing up. We go all the way back to 75 kilometers ago when you wanted to split the group up with 3 teams chasing, and you're the fastest sprinter in the world, and certainly the fastest sprinter here at the Tour de France with 2 teammates. You wanted to split it up, and you're complaining that guys aren't working well together. You're the knucklehead that started all this at 75 kilometers to go, and then Mathieu van der Poel was the knucklehead that followed the attacks instead of just keeping it all together so that this group could pull hard with Jumbo-Visma, Thies Benoot pulling on the front, with Mathieu van der Poel pulling on the front, and Luka Mesgets, who has Dylan Groenewegen, would have been pulling on the front, controlling this group, trying to bring back that group of 3. Instead, it's total chaos. Now, after Mads Pedersen gets the verbal abuse there from Jasper Philipsen, this group finally starts working together. But the group of 3 is coming under 4 kilometers to go, and their gap's up to about 30 seconds. We get into 2 kilometers to go, and it's getting up to about 31, 33 seconds. So we know the group of 3 is going to the finish if they can keep it all together. Well, they do keep it all together. We're coming into 1K to go. It's the Flamme Rouge up front. Mate Mahorch is pulling. He's going to pull to about 950 meters to go. Then the Bahrain victorious rider is going to pull off, and that's it. After that, he's sitting on the back 3rd wheel right behind Casper Asgreen. We'll see AG2R Ben O'Connor. He's going to pull into about 750 meters to go. Then he's going to pull off and let Asgreen take over at about 700. Now, Asgreen knows the game. He's looking left over his shoulder, looking back, seeing what kind of time he's got on the 9 chasers that are following, because he knows he's the fastest rider out of this group of 3. He'll pull all the way into about 450 meters to go, and that's when you see it. The back of the group of 3, Ben O'Connor starts stretching out the gap and letting the 2 right away. That tells you every time that Ben O'Connor is going to get ready to attack, and he wants to slingshot. He wants to get that momentum going forward, get the draft, and then slingshot off these 2 guys and attack. Well, he does exactly what I just got done explaining to you, and he hits out with about 400 meters to go. He goes all the way to the left side of the road. Casper Asgreen knows that Mate Mahorch isn't going to pull him back, so he follows. He's got about a 3 bike length gap there on Ben O'Connor, and he's accelerating the whole time on the AG2R rider. Catches him at about 200 meters and slingshots him off at about 190 meters. But this is a little far out, and it's a little bit of a drag. But Casper Asgreen is the fastest rider here in this group of 3. Casper Asgreen slingshots off, goes over to the right side of the road. He's going full gas now, head down, cheeks pumping with air as he's trying to get maximum air into his lungs. Mate Mahorch is locked solid onto the Pseudo Quickstep rider's wheel. Mate Mahorch starts his acceleration about 100 meters to go. 50 meters to go. They're just about side by side, but Pseudo Quickstep Asgreen still has the lead. 25 meters to go. They're side by side now, and with 10 meters to go, we see Mate Mahorch start to throw his bike. 5 meters to go. This is when we see Casper Asgreen throw his bike. When they cross the line, neither rider knows who won. They'll come across the line completely exhausted and nobody's celebrating. But we know 3rd on the stage, Ben O'Connor, AG2R, who did a magical job to get a podium here. We know he's 3rd. We go up front. We still got to pause a little bit as we start looking at the angles from the different side. We'll see again that it's Casper Asgreen leading at 100 meters, and we see how close it is at 50 and at 25 meters, and we see again with the bike throw, and you can't tell who won. Well, then we get the picture at the line, the official picture, and we know Mate Mahorch wins today's stage. We see him completely teared up and emotional after he's figured out that he's won today's stage 19 for Bahrain Victorious to take their 3rd victory at the 2023 Tour de France, because they won with Pello Bilbao and they won with Wout Poels on stages 10 and 15 at this year's Tour de France, so that's 3 victories. Now, if you got time, you want to go back and watch the whole stage. But if you don't have time, you certainly want to go and watch the interview from Matej Mohoric. It was emotional. Guys, he gets up there smiling, and then he just starts breaking down in tears. He talks about how difficult it is to beat a rider because of the emotional toll of the whole thing. The team, his swan years, his mechanics, how they've been working from sunup to sundown, working so hard, and he's got to go deep to take the win. But he feels bad taking the win from riders like Ben O'Connor, who worked tirelessly with this group of 3, even though he knew he only had a 1% chance of winning today's stage 19 of the Tour de France. So he feels bad for Ben O'Connor. He feels terrible for passing Casper Asgreen and keeping Casper Asgreen from taking a second victory here at the Tour de France. But these are the highs and lows of sports. This is what I love watching from the Chesterfield. His emotions coming up here on the podium when he's getting an interview is just absolutely magical when you see the emotions going through the rider of Matej Mohoric, the highs and lows and the sadness, but the joy of winning today's stage. Of course, he dedicates the stage to Gino Mader, who passed away at Tour de Suisse, like each one of his teammates did, and why all of Bahrain Victorious is so emotional throughout this 23 Tour de France. It was a spectacular day of racing. I did not do it justice at all. Now, when you go back to see 4th on the stage, that was Jasper Philipsen, again getting 4th here at the Tour de France, back-to-back stages. And when we dissect his tactics, he'll probably go to bed tonight thinking like, oh man, this was a hard stage today. We just came up a little bit short. No, you guys made mistake after mistake here on stage 19. 75 kilometers ago with 3 teams chasing, 8 guys, and holding them solid at about a 50-second gap. You gotta believe if that attack coming into the sprint line and pulling after that, if you guys can pull back that group of 8 to 3 riders behind with X, 4 riders pulling, who were the guys who did pull back that group of 8 eventually, they would have pulled it back. You'd have had a free ride going into the last and final 2.3 kilometer climb here on stage 19. And then you would have had Dylan Groenewegen's Jaco Alula team to help protect going over the KOM to make it a field sprint. And on top of that, you would have had Intermarché in the group that had Biniam Girmay in this front group. So they would have probably helped control too once Zimmerman in that group of 8 got brought back. You have 2 more teams on the front that won a field sprint. And you have Søren Kragh Andersen and Matthew van der Poel to help protect and bring it into a field sprint so you could win another stage here at the Tour de France. Instead, you guys just messed it all up. Now, going into tomorrow's final last mountain stage here at the Tour de France, it's a short one, about 80 miles in length, so about 130 kilometers. It's going to be full gas again. It's the last chance for a breakaway to get away, and it's the last chance for the GC teams to try to win a stage here. Talking about UAE Team Emirates, Jumbo-Visma, you know if they want to win another stage in the 23 Tour de France, they're going to have to control the race tomorrow and try to blow it up on the last and final climb that'll summit with about 6 kilometers to go. Now we go into the final stage 21 on the Champs. Maybe Jasper Philipsen and Albacine de Koenig with some really simple tactics can keep things together, but if they forget how to race their bike again on stage 21, you know Bora Hansgrohe won't. They'll try to make it a sprint for Jordi Mayus, or Jaco Alula know how to ride a field sprint too, so they'll be on the front to control it. So we should see a big battle in tomorrow's last mountain stage and then a field sprint on the Champs if everything goes according to how I see it up here on the Butterfly Effect. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.